During an amazing trip to Italy with my kids, I discovered a shocking truth. Trust was hidden. Jack felt a gaping hole in his chest as he stood beneath the warm Florentine sun, hand in hand with Lily and Max. These cobbled streets were meant to weave happiness back into their fractured family tapestry, yet an unsettling weight clung to him like the humid air. The gelato spots and vibrant market stalls beckoned, filled with laughter and life, but he couldn't shake the shadow of his recent divorce and the fears that swirled like the clouds above. They passed a quaint gelato shop, the fragrance of fresh cones tickling their noses. "Can we please go in?" Lily's eyes sparkled with desire as she tugged at his sleeve. Staring at her hopeful face, Jack felt the pressure of the moment. He hesitated. The thought of enjoying sweets while wrestling with the ghost of his father haunted him. What if the joy he created here would fade into nothingness, just like the aftermath of his splitting family? Yet what choice did he have? Sometimes a father had to pretend. Inside, Nana Rosa enveloped them with her warmth, welcoming them like long-lost kin. As they savored their gelato, her twinkling eyes danced with stories of the past. Then she mentioned Jack's father, her voice dropping to a whisper. He used to visit the family estate. The mention was a jolt, awakening a childhood turmoil buried beneath layers of grief and distrust. His father had left with silence wrapped around him, creating a rift no one dared cross. Jack fidgeted as Nana revealed hidden facets of the family's history, twisted ties of debts, disappointment, and decisions made in shadow. Anguish knotted in his stomach as questions clouded his mind. All this time he thought he was the sole architect of his family's disappointment, yet his father had his own burdens. Would it be fair to inflict this chaos onto his children? Trust felt fragile under the weight of these newfound revelations. What was his role now? To reclaim something that felt tainted, or to let it lie, not wanting his children to shoulder the weight of a father's legacy? The desire to shield Lily and Max twisted inside him, battling with the yearning to understand who he truly was without the haunt of his father's decisions. Doubt surged through him, tightening his chest like a vice. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Confrontations brewed silently in Jack's mind, fueling a tempest of emotions. His father's past unveiled a tapestry of deceit, unraveling at the seams, threatening to drag his children down into an abyss of loss he struggled against daily. With the scent of gelato still in the air, the notion of distant relatives claiming rights to the estate carved deeper into his heart. They sought more than just land. They sought the remnants of an honor he had never even understood. How could he protect his children from the fallout of their family's history? The sun dipped lower behind the ancient buildings, reflecting on his turmoil. He looked at Lily, her laughter mingling with that of Max's, both reveling in simple pleasure, completely oblivious to the eerie past encroaching on their present. A storm brewed as Jack confronted the impossible choices before him. Which narrative would he choose to fight for: the undiscovered family history that could rip open old wounds, or the sanctuary of a fragile new beginning for Lily and Max? As the dusk deepened with ominous shades, he sensed time slipping away, leaving behind questions that would soon demand answers. Would he reclaim a heritage of betrayal or forge an unbroken promise to protect his children? The choices ahead loomed larger than life, eclipsing their precious vacation, while all Jack could do was brace for the storm he could no longer ignore. As Jack wandered the streets of Florence, the weight of the day pressed heavier on his shoulders. The sun pulled away, painting the horizon in shades of gold and deepening shadows, mirroring the turmoil within him. He couldn't escape the gnawing sensation that each step forward only took him closer to a reckoning he wasn't prepared for. He looked at Lily and Max, their innocent laughter echoing through the alleyways, and wondered how long he could shield them from the truths lurking in the corners of their family history. That night, in their rented apartment, the atmosphere thickened with unspoken tension. Max fell asleep instantly, exhaustion from the day's adventures wrapping him in dreams of dragons and heroes. Jack leaned back against the worn chair, staring at nothing in particular, as memories of his father churned in his brain. The stories from Nana echoed hauntingly, weaving themselves into a narrative Jack never wanted to acknowledge. His phone buzzed and a message from his sister flickered across the screen, proposing a family conversation about the estate. Jack's heart pounded, the thought making his pulse race. The last thing he wanted was to dive back into the generational chaos, yet he sensed the inevitability of confronting it. Ignoring it wouldn't make it disappear. In that moment, a choice crystallized in his mind. He could continue to bury himself in denial or face this tangled family history head-on. But how? The instinct to shield his children warred against his longing for truth. Could his children handle the weight of their legacy? Shouldn't they be aware of the darkness that might try to reclaim them? Suddenly, a spark of determination ignited within him. If he were to reclaim their family's narrative, he would need to unravel its threads. But more importantly, he realized he had to redefine what that narrative meant. Jack tossed the phone onto the table, rose to his feet, and found himself at the kitchen counter, fingers tracing empty dishes. Could he extract wisdom from his father's failures without endowing his children with fear? Jack began to visualize a plan, a way to confront the past while protecting Lily and Max. He'd need to weave a new story, one of resilience and redemption. It was time he embraced vulnerability, sharing parts of himself they felt entitled to know while sheltering them from the residue of his father's mistakes. Jack caught a glimpse of his reflection in the darkened window. He was a father, yes, but he was also a man unwilling to let the ghosts of his family define him anymore. Memories of firmer ground beneath his feet rippled through him. A path forward formed that wasn't just about running from shadows. In bed that night, as the moon cast pale light into the room, Jack turned to his children and whispered a silent promise. Tomorrow would be different. He talked to them about past failures, but emphasized the strength within choices. He had to do it carefully, making sure Lily and Max understood missteps didn't dictate their paths. The dawn broke with new clarity, illuminating a landscape rife with possibilities. Jack understood, however, that confronting his family's history wouldn't just be about sharing tales. It would also require the act of bravery to face those relatives who lurked, eager to lay claim to the past and secure their piece of the inheritance. And as he prepared for the day, an unsettling unease prickled at the edge of his excitement. This trip was becoming less about mending ties and more about warfare over legacies. The time had come to face his father's legacy if he wanted to secure a future for Lily and Max untethered by the sins of the past. As he ventured out, determination burgeoning within him, he could almost hear the echoes of his father's choices whispering in the air, weaving a shadow that Jack was resolved to dissipate. But in seeking to reclaim his family's narrative, he couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps confronting the past might open doors to challenges he never anticipated. Would he be ready for the battle to come? Jack stood at the edge of the balcony, the early sun illuminating the sprawling landscape of Florence. The soft scent of bougainvillea drifted through the air, but the vibrant beauty of his surroundings felt muted, overshadowed by his internal conflict. Today was pivotal, and the promise he made to himself weighed heavily on his heart. He needed to talk to Lily and Max, to dismantle the myths that had perpetuated through generations. As the children meandered through breakfast, Jack observed them, searching for the right moment to begin. The innocent chatter about their plans for the day seemed so distant from the dreaded family meeting that loomed ahead. How could he balance the joy of discovery in a new city with the gravity of his family history? "Daddy, can we go to the market today?" Lily's voice broke his reverie, filled with the same enthusiasm he once had for exploration. "Of course, but first, can we have a chat?" Jack replied, biting back the anxiety that constricted his throat. Max, oblivious to the underlying tension, asked about the pastries piled high on the table, and Jack felt a pang of guilt. How could he pull them into this? They deserved a carefree childhood unreachable by the scars of his past. Once breakfast ended, Jack gathered his courage. The children sensed something was different in his demeanor as they settled into the living room, sunlight streaming through the window. Jack sat down among them, the casual routine of their trip feeling starkly out of place in this new serious context. "I want to talk about something important. Something about our family," he began, the words flowing more easily than he expected. He told them stories of their ancestors, of triumphs and failures, and the choices made that shaped their lives, choices that were not always admirable, He watched their eyes widen with curiosity and concern, emotions flickering across their faces like sunlight on water. "What kind of bad choices, Daddy?" Lily asked, her brows furrowed with worry. Jack hesitated, but determination grew within him. "Choices that hurt people, left scars and created divisions. But it's important for you to know that while the past holds dark moments, it also holds lessons. We can choose not to repeat those mistakes." He waited, bracing for their reactions. Instead of fear, he saw a spark of understanding growing in Max's eyes. "So we can change things, not make them worse." "Yes," Jack affirmed, surprised by how empowered those words made him feel. "We can change our story. You've got to remember that mistakes are part of being human, but they don't define us." Jack's heart raced as Lily leaned forward, her expression shifting from a frown of concern to something brighter. "Can we be brave then? Together?" "Always," he promised, however. Just as he began to feel the emotional weight lift, the sudden chime of his phone shattered the moment. It was a message from his sister again, a reminder of the forthcoming family meeting. "Talk later, need to prepare," he whispered to himself, unable to shake the sense of impending confrontation that awaited him. As Jack excused himself, he felt the sense of clarity he had gained slowly melting into doubt. Had he opened too many wounds? The fear of how his family would react to his revelations gnawed at him. Expanding the dialogue with his children felt like a victory, but now he had to confront his sister and the family dynamics that had been allowed to fester. He could sense that honesty might not be welcome after all this time. Jack took a deep breath, staring at his reflection in the dark screen of his phone, a stranger standing at the crossroads of past and future. The stakes of this familial battle were rising, and the question loomed larger than ever. Could he survive the encounter with those who might invoke the ghosts of a legacy he fought to escape? With steely resolve he set out, feeling the weight of his legacy bearing down, the next chapter of his family's story teetering on the edge of change. As he stepped onto the streets, the vivid colors of Florence around him felt like a paradox, a city steeped in beauty that mirrored the conflicts yet to unfold. Would he be ready for the chaos of truth awaiting him? The cobblestones of Florence felt uneven beneath Jack's feet, each step echoing like a drumbeat in his chest. The vibrant city teemed with life, yet all he could feel was the tightening grip of anxiety. He moved through the narrow, winding streets toward their family house, the weight of his past looming like a heavy fog around him. With every glance at the storefronts, each tantalizing aroma wafting from nearby cafes, his earlier conversations with Lily and Max faded into the background. The exhilaration of exploration was being supplanted by the dread of what awaited him, an encounter with his sister that felt like a storm brewing on the horizon. Jack tucked his hands into his pockets as he navigated the streets, a tactic he often used to anchor himself in moments of uncertainty. He replayed the exchanges with his children in his mind, the promise of honesty igniting a flicker of hope. He needed to maintain that spirit as he prepared for a confrontation that could either fortify or shatter the family ties he had long hoped to mend. Violet, his sister, waited with the rest of their family for a gathering that carried echoes of past grievances. As he approached the familiar door, memories flooded back, laughter interspersed with harsh words, unity seemingly dissolved by long-standing resentments. Would his honesty hold the power to bridge the chasms created by their shared history? He inhaled deeply as he pushed the door open, and the warmth of the afternoon sun was replaced by an enveloping cloud of familial tension. Conversations ceased, and a silence fell like an uninvited guest. Jack's heart raced. He could feel their eyes sizing him up, weighing the courage he had mustered against their readiness for the truths he carried. "Jack," Violet greeted, her voice strained, betraying the underlying discomfort. "We were just waiting for you." "I know this isn't easy," Jack began, forcing the words through a throat thick with emotion. "But I need to talk about everything. About the past and how we can move forward." The room was heavy with a mix of disbelief and apprehension. Jack could see the familiar expressions on their faces, the mixture of curiosity and guardedness, as they prepared for a dialogue they had all avoided for too long. The moment felt fragile, as though a slight misstep might shatter the tentative thread of connection they had forged through shared blood. "What do you mean? What is there to talk about?" Violet's brow furrowed in skepticism, her fingers subconsciously curling around the edge of the table as if bracing herself against what was to come. Jack took another breath, settling his focus on her. I've started to understand how our past has shaped us, shaped me. The choices we made or didn't make influenced who we became. And I don't want that for you or your children. A murmur passed through the group, and Jack read the disbelief etched into their faces. I made promises to my kids that I wouldn't let the shadows of our history define them. But what I overlooked is that I still carry those shadows. It's time I stop hiding. As he spoke, Jack could sense a mixture of acceptance and tension building in the air. They were on the brink of something significant, a confrontation that could unearth old wounds, but also pave the way for healing. Jack, you don't know what you're asking us to do. Another family member cut in. Words filled with a blend of protectiveness and fear that resonated deeply with Jack. I do know, and that's why I'm here. I'm ready to talk, to listen, and to face what we've avoided. This can't go on. The heat in his words surprised even him, a testament to the emotional reservoir he had tapped into during his discussions with Lily and Max. He could sense the pivotal moment unfolding. Would they join him, willing to unmask the protective layers they had built around themselves, or recoil into their individual narratives of pain? As silence stretched between them, a clash of emotions brewing like a tempest, Jack felt a surge of determination rise within him. He had initiated the conversation, and now it was time for his family to respond, but would they embrace this opportunity or deny it as they had done in the past? The answers lay suspended in the room, and Jack recognized that every word moving forward carried stakes much higher than he had anticipated. Would he finally break the chains of ancestry, or be bound by the same threads his family struggled against for generations? The moment of truth was upon him, and he realized that this was more than just a family discussion. It was a battle for liberation. The path was laid out, and he could almost see the fork ahead, one leading toward continued strife, the other toward a future of understanding. As he stood on the precipice of revelation, Jack recognized that the real test of his resolve was yet to unfold. How would he navigate the emotions swirling around him and forge a path forward? The answer to that question loomed larger than ever, and with it a new challenge awaited. Could he truly accept the consequences of vulnerability, or would he retreat into silence yet again? A thick tension enveloped the room, the air almost crackling with unspoken words as Jack prepared to forge into the depths of history that had long lay buried. His family's silence, a haunting echo of the past, demanded attention now. This was not merely a conversation. It felt more like a reckoning. Jack's gaze bounced from face to face. Violet's brow still furrowed, a physical manifestation of her confusion and doubt. The expressions of others mixed anger with disbelief, and perhaps, just beneath the surface, a glimmer of hope. Would they recognize their shared desire for reconnection? Jack, what do you expect from this? Violet finally asked, her voice sharper than he anticipated. You think we can just sit here and pretend everything will be okay because you've decided to spill your guts? No, Jack replied, tempering his voice. I don't expect it to be okay without work. I know that now. I've spent so many years pretending that the past could be ignored, as if moving forward meant erasing it. He felt the heat of vulnerability burning in his chest. The conversations with Lily and Max had ignited something in him, an understanding that the weight of family history could only be lifted through acknowledgement rather than denial. Jack's thoughts raced as he pieced together his own intentions, ready to confront the tangled web of unresolved issues. Listen, I've spent too long locked in silence, just as I see all of you have. The thing is, facing this pain could be the key to freedom for all of us, he said, firming his resolve. I can't change what has happened to us, but what I can do is take responsibility for my part, and hope you all will do the same. As the words spilled from him, Jack was struck by the realization of how far he had come. The self-doubt that had plagued him as a father seemed to dwindle in the shadow of this moment. He was no longer the passive observer of his family's cycles. He was taking initiative, and that felt like an achievement he had long sought. Violet blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected shift in his demeanor. Perhaps she wasn't entirely closed off. Jack took a step closer, leaning into the shared space. I don't want to keep running from this, he continued. All these years we've hardened ourselves against one another, when we could have embraced the challenge of our relationship. I want to understand your hurt, your anger, even your fears. I'm here for all of it. We can't change the past, but we can change how it affects our future. Especially for the kids. The room exhaled only a slight release, yet noticeable. Jack felt a cautious optimism build within him. The momentum of their discussion could shift if they were willing. Your children? A family member scoffed, shaking his head. You barely know how to handle your own ghosts. Why include them now? You don't want to taint their perception like ours was tainted. Exactly, Jack shot back, feeling the familiarity of his old defenses surfacing. I want to break that cycle because I care. They matter to me more than I ever realized because I haven't allowed our past to dictate the possibility of a better future. This is about them and healing too. A murmur rippled through the family, the collective unease momentarily disrupted. Jack's heart raced. He had said what he never thought he would. Vulnerability, he discovered, was not a burden but a form of strength that could catalyze change. Are you ready to embrace that same strength? He pressed, a challenge lingering in the air. Are we ready to do this together? The resonance of his words had permeated the wall of defensiveness. Each face before him reflected the struggle of willingness against fear, the same conflict he faced individually. Would they ordinarily bridge the abyss? As Jack waited for their response, anticipation gripped his insides. The dust settled, the echoes of pain muffled, allowing a hallmark moment to emerge. Perhaps the dawn of collaboration could lead to the acknowledgement they so desperately needed. But then the door to history creaked, one uncle shifting in his seat, arms folded tightly across his chest as if to keep the unresolved closed. Would Jack finally be met with the wall of resistance he had feared? Or would they risk everything to step towards collective healing? In that charged moment, Jack felt the tremble of possibility. He had embraced his vulnerability. Was it too much to hope that they might do the same? And what would it mean for them all if this moment shattered their defenses or potentially held them prisoner? The tension sparked alive again, and Jack questioned whether he possessed the courage to embrace the full weight of whatever revelations were about to surface. The next move was in their hands, and that prospect both terrified and empowered him. Jack held his breath, his heart pounding as he waited for his family to react. Was he too ambitious in expecting them to navigate through these turbulent waters? The seconds felt like hours, each tick of the clock hammering the uncertainty deeper into his consciousness. Then the silence was pierced by Violet's steady voice, quieter now but filled with resolve. Maybe we should, she said, her gaze softening as it met Jack's. Perhaps it's time to stop pretending we're fine when we're not. The air shifted around them, gasping at the possibility of this delicate bridge finally forming. Yet another family member scoffed, their skepticism echoing loudly in the frail space he had begun to nurture. And what do you think talking about the past will change? It's all a dream wrapped in chains. There's no point in digging it all up. Jack clenched his fists. He could feel the anger rising within him, ready to clash with the fears that had gripped his family for so long. I'm not asking us to erase the past. I want us to learn from it. How can we show the next generation how to live fully if we carry the burden of silence? His voice cracked with the weight of emotion. As the conversation escalated, Jack became acutely aware of his surroundings. The dim light cast shadows across the room, mirroring the shadows haunting their histories. Each family member wore their emotional scars like badges, and he could sense the tension growing as he spoke. The stakes were increasing, the air hung heavier, charged with unresolved pain, yearning for understanding. Jack felt a flicker of recognition in Violet's eyes. I listened to you at the lake the other day, and it struck me how fragmented we've all become. We've let anger build walls instead of building bridges. Maybe we can't change the past, but we can certainly change how we deal with it. Those words struck a chord in Jack. He nodded, encouraged by her willingness to meet him halfway. We have to confront our hurt, he reiterated. We need to unlock those doors that have been shut far too long. Only then can we move forward. As they exchanged glances, scattered nods trickled through the room, a faint sign of agreement. But the uncle with crossed arms remained an immovable fortress. Jack's mind raced. How could he reach him? Every moment felt like a fragile opportunity slipping through his fingers. His thoughts flashed back to his children's small, innocent faces shaped by choices he had made. What if the walls they faced in their own lives were made of the silence he was fighting against? He swallowed hard, feeling a swell of determination surge through him. For my kids, I refuse to let ignorance win. I want to give them a legacy of honesty and strength. A murmur erupted, the walls of resistance wavering. Jack's heart quickened. Could this finally become the turning point? But he also felt the weight of resistance bearing down. Then the uncle spoke, his voice low yet sharp, dismantling the flickering hope. Do you really think this is about changing the legacy? Your children will inherit our pain. They need to see the reality, not some fairy tale. With that bitter truth hanging in the air, the room shifted again. A plunge into the very depths of despair Jack had dared to challenge. Doubt crept back in, whispering fears of failing to ignite change. Was he prepared to face this reality? Was he strong enough to convert the whole family's fear into something meaningful? The moment hung suspended, thick with uncertainty. Jack realized that the real confrontation was not just with the pain of the past, but also with the definition of progress itself. Did he have the courage to continue challenging inconceivable legacies when the next tide of resistance rose? He steadied himself, inhaling deeply, bracing for the implications of the answers they still had to confront. If we can't embrace our truths now, our kids will be doomed to repeat these cycles. How can we break this? As silence fell again, Jack felt he was on the precipice of a transformative moment, or perhaps the brink of deeper despair. Would the family find their path together? Or would they succumb to the fears that had held them captive for so long? The next words spoken could unravel everything or reorder their fates. Jack's resolve hardened within him, as he realized the battle ahead, the push for their truth still teetered on a knife's edge. And yet, in that uncertainty lay the profound promise of healing. What would they need to confront next? It was all in question, and he was about to lead them to the answer whether they were ready or not. The silence clung to the air like a heavy fog, and Jack could feel every heartbeat pulsate through the room. Rather than let disappointment dissuade him, he harnessed the tension, channeling it into a newfound clarity. He had been vulnerable, bearing the belief that honesty could breed resilience, even among those seemingly soured by circumstance. It was time to press on. Look, I know this journey isn't easy, Jack conceded, his voice steadying. But we've spent too long sweeping everything under the rug. If my own children are to grow into adults capable of making their own choices, I need to lay the groundwork now, and I can't do this alone. His gaze drifted toward Violet, who nodded with a flicker of hope in her eyes. Even the skeptical uncle's arms unfolded slightly, revealing a sliver of intrigue. That small change in posture signified that the conversation might not be in vain. Jack took a step forward, the physical distance no longer a barrier but rather an invitation. What if, he proposed, instead of looking back only to relive our pain, we examined it to understand how it shaped us? We need the truth to move forward. A flicker of resistance lingered, but the air was charged. Jack felt it, a tiny spark igniting among despair as he continued, driven by the realization that he was no longer just fighting for acceptance. He was advocating for freedom, their freedom. Those that came before us. They left us lessons wrapped in their struggles. We owe it to ourselves and our children to share them. My parents, your parents. They coped in their own ways, but we have the chance not just to share our burdens but to create a new narrative. He paused, scanning the room, gauging reactions. We can transform our legacy. Jack could see the wheels turning in the thoughts of his family, curiosity mixed with apprehension. A blend probably too familiar for them. For the first time since he had initiated this tough dialogue, hope flickered through the shadows as the moments ticked forward. Jack felt the enormity of the conversation pressing against him. The question wasn't just about restitution, it was about reinvention. Fear bubbled within, wrestling with the notion that maybe they could build something unfamiliar yet liberating. What did it mean to recount tales of joy and sorrow, of growth and stagnation freely? Can we start small? Violet's voice broke into his thoughts, an anchor in a sea of uncertainty. Is it possible to share just one story tonight? One truth that connects us? Jack's heartbeat quickened, reverberating with the urgency of her suggestion. It was a manageable request, yet it packed weight, massive enough to provoke change but light enough not to overwhelm. Yes, he agreed, grasping firmly the thread of connection woven by her words. What do you say, everyone? One story to start bridging our divides? One by one, members of his family hesitated as if they were about to dive into uncharted waters. Their eyes darted, looking for affirmation, each carrying their private histories. Jack sensed their internal battles. Would they choose to step into this newfound light or retreat back to the shadows? Then in a surprising move his uncle cleared his throat. "All right then, I'll go first," he said. His voice gruff yet surprisingly steady. Jack held his breath, tension tightening around him like a noose. There it was, the hint of vulnerability that could unravel everything. Each word uttered after this would certainly shift the tides further, with the most unexpected of them all beginning the dialogue. Jack realized he hadn't just unlocked a potential conversation. He might have just opened a door to healing, a rare avenue toward the legacy he craved for his children. But the next steps required deeper transparency. As the uncle began reciting his story, Jack listened, his mind whirling with the possibility of change. Was the family finally ready to confront their history together? Or would the realities of those stories serve as a mirror reflecting fears long buried? In that charged atmosphere, Jack felt the pulse of transformation beating through him, each word opening new windows on the path before them. What would his uncle reveal, and how would it catalyze the risk-taking needed to disrupt years of silence? Each family member was poised on the brink of revelation. What stories awaited discovery? What deeper truths lay hidden within them, waiting for the right moment to surface? As Jack's uncle spoke, the room thickened with an intensity that pressed down on everyone's shoulders. His voice was low, reverberating with a weight that resonated deep within Jack. Each word outlined a life long lived, battles fought silently, and sacrifices made without acknowledgement. Jack leaned in, wrapped in attention, trying to internalize the narrative unfolding before him. "I'll start with the year your mother was born," the uncle began, his eyes narrowing as if closing off the rest of the world. "It was a difficult moment for our family. Jobs were scarce and ghosts from the past were still haunting our lives. Your grandmother was struggling physically and mentally, and we were all feeling the strain." Jack felt a shiver ripple through him, a mix of dread and curiosity. Could this be a reveal? Would this story finally articulate the cracks that had been damaging their family facade? A voice in him whispered that this was a pivotal moment. If the uncle exposed truths buried for years, it could force everyone, including him, to reevaluate their own narratives. As his uncle recounted tales of hardship, Jack could practically feel the moments ripple through time. He caught Violet stealing glances at their father, her typical joviality replaced with serious contemplation, mirroring Jack's own mental stirrings. Their family history was not just a backdrop. It was becoming a shared ordeal. A truth was surfacing, and it pulsed through him like electricity. The revelation morphed into confessions of struggles with alcohol, feelings of inadequacy, and emotional distance that had festered between generations. The uncle, with every admission, began shedding years of silent anger and shame that had anchored his spirit. Each truth was like a puzzle piece falling into place, illuminating the patterns that had masked their dysfunction. "I didn't handle things well," Jack's uncle said, meeting Jack's gaze with unexpected vulnerability. "I let ghosts dictate my choices. Instead of speaking up, I clung to silence, thinking it would protect us. But it only created more distance." The admission hung in the air, heavily as if suffocating an unseen tension. Jack felt a burgeoning sense of responsibilities not only for his own growth, but also for the family he was desperately trying to unify. He was learning that to lead by example, he had to confront his own ghosts as well. And right now, his uncle's words served as both a mirror and a catalyst, forcing him to reflect on his own vulnerabilities. The crack in the uncle's facade prompted others to stir. His cousin shared a struggle with anxiety, born from the pressures of expectations. It seemed as if one person's honesty acted as a chain reaction, inspiring others to confront their own truths. Each story unveiled was another layer stripped away from the family's secret burdens. Jack noted the visible changes in his family members. He could see the tension in their shoulders easing as they breathed with newfound rhythm. Conversations that once felt like navigating a field of landmines began to echo with clarity. Each person, now more aware of the other's fears, was beginning to forge connections stronger than the invisible walls built over the years. But just as the breathing space expanded, a sudden chill pierced the atmosphere. Jack's mind raced. Was this safe? Was everyone equipped to handle the realities they were exposing? He felt an echo of doubt, a flicker of concern that some revelations might fracture the carefully crafted foundation of understanding they had started to build. What will we do with these truths now? Jack wondered, his heart quickening. Would they face the burdens together, or would they retreat into their shells once exposed? As his uncle finished, the room settled into a reflective quiet. Jack's mind buzzed with potential paths forward, challenges that lay ahead. Each story shared had the power to reshape their legacy, but could equally veer into the dark unknown if mishandled. How can we ensure these stories don't just fade back into silence? He found himself asking, sensing the weight of accountability resting squarely on his shoulders. The room tensed again, the air thick with anticipation, as he awaited the responses of his family, each member reflecting the push and pull of their shared histories. In that moment, Jack understood the fight had only just begun. The courage to confront the past would require even deeper connections. The real question loomed large. Would they embrace this transformation, or succumb to the very silence they sought to break free from? An uncomfortable silence unfolded in the room, rich with unspoken words. Jack could almost hear the thoughts of each family member as they processed the gravity of their shared revelations. He felt an urgency rising in him, mixing with the realistic notion that deep change required more than a momentary opening of hearts. What if we set a goal? Jack suggested, his voice steady but curious, luring his family toward engagement. What if we hold each other accountable for being more open, for sharing not only the past but our hopes and fears for the future? His suggestion floated in the air, met with a mix of skepticism and contemplation. Jack scanned the room. He saw Violet's eyes brightening with a spark of desire to contribute, while his uncle eyed him thoughtfully, weighing the risk of such an idea against the backdrop of their raw honesty. "I like that," Violet finally said, her voice gaining strength. "But we need to make sure we're equipped for it. Trust doesn't just come from confession. It takes nurturing commitment." That notion struck a chord within Jack. It echoed deeper than he realized, stirring him to think about his own patterns. The vulnerability his uncle had displayed had ignited a fire in him, but could he truly trust his own reactions? Would he falter when confronting the past or find a way to bridge the gaps between their shared stories? The consideration began taking shape, and it was no longer just about accountability. It was about cultivating an environment where, for the first time, the family could feel secure unveiling their layers. His uncle's story had revealed their history-esque grip on the present, but Jack reflected on how they might harness that knowledge to carve a new direction. "What if we do a weekly check-in?" he continued, enthusiasm beginning to bubble over. "Each of us can share struggles, wins, even small triumphs related to what we've uncovered. It doesn't have to be monumental, it just needs to be honest." A flicker of uncertainty passed through Jack as he considered how easy it would be for doubt to creep back into conversations. What if someone withdrew back into silence? He shot a sideways glance toward his uncle, unsure if this was too much too fast. Even though vulnerability had opened the floodgates for revealing truths, that same honesty could backfire if pursued mindlessly. "I'm with you, Jack," his uncle replied carefully, an echo of newfound commitment warming his tone. "But it's essential to ensure this space is safe. We can't rush it, we can't force honesty." A learning moment dawned on Jack. He knew he would need to navigate this carefully, just as his uncle had learned the hard way. To shepherd their family through this transformation required patience, sensitivity, and an understanding that revelations could just as easily bless them with insight or chain them with fear. In that moment, a deep-seated realization crystallized within him. If he were to grow, he would need to step into this role fully. His insistence on emotional transparency needed to extend beyond simple talk. He would have to confront his own fears before guiding others. The conversation continued, but now vibrant threads of dialogue sparked excitement. Each family member contributed with their insights about how to develop this new path. Jack sat back, absorbed in observations about varying reactions. Some were eager, while others exuded defensiveness. Suddenly he recalled a deeply buried childhood mantra. Trust takes time, it takes work. He could feel the undeniable truth of those words taking hold. Change would not come easily, and he might have to revisit his past wounds before emerging stronger. As these realizations settled within, he felt anticipation mixed with anxiety. What revelations would turn up next? What would he uncover about himself through guiding his family into this new phase? "I just hope everyone is willing to confront not only the past but also the fears that lie ahead," he thought, shaking off a tingle of apprehension and that embrace of collective uncertainty. He understood that his journey was only just beginning. Jack lifted his head, newfound determination evident in his stance. "Next week we'll start with our stories," he said firmly, eyes glancing between relatives. "But let us also not forget to discuss what we want for ourselves moving forward." The air thickened again, this time filled with potent possibilities. Would they stand by each other? Would they emerge as a more connected unit, with deeper respect for one another's experiences? Jack inhaled slowly, and the weight of anticipation settled in. Change was in the air, but whether it uplifts or grounds them would hinge on their engagement moving forward. Legacy, after all, has a way of rearing its head when least expected. He'd soon find out if they were ready to face their OWS. The room quietly buzzed with unspoken expectations. Jack couldn't shake one lingering question. How would they forge their path if the very honesty that brought them together risked tearing them apart? Time passed, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting Florence in a tapestry of warm hues, Jack felt a shift within himself and in the atmosphere surrounding his family. The initial discomfort of their shared conversation had morphed into something potent, a recognition that change was not merely possible, but necessary. Jack stood in front of his family, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the kitchen light, and realized that this was a pivotal moment, one that would define their legacy moving forward. Violet broke the silence first, her voice steady. "We've spent so long avoiding the tough discussions, but hearing those stories laid bare the struggles we've been through. They remind me that we're not just fighting ghosts," she said, her gaze locking with Jack's. "We owe it to ourselves to move beyond what history has served us." Jack nodded, feeling a swell of pride for his sister. As they spoke, layers of defensive armor began to peel away, revealing a family ready, at last, to confront their collective truths. This conversation, he realized, was more than just about addressing the past. It was about forging deeper connections that could redefine not just their family, but also the legacies passed on to Lily and Emma. As each family member took turns sharing their stories, Jack felt a sense of liberation wash over him. The uncle, once a fortress of resistance, spoke about his own regrets, voicing vulnerabilities he had held close for too long. He revealed moments of anger tangled with confusion, exposing a softer side shaped by fear of failure. Each revelation acted as a bomb, breaking barriers that had separated them for years. Jack felt the warmth of understanding ripple through the room, a tangible bond forming a testament to their shared experiences and humanity. In that shared vulnerability, he sensed he was not the only one undergoing transformation. His family was awakening to the possibility of healing, allowing past regrets to catalyze personal growth. As conversations continued, Jack found himself aligning more with the concept of empathy and growth, transcending his own anger toward his father's legacy. "We can change this narrative, can't we?" he said, feeling his resolve strengthen. "Yes, this is just the beginning," Violet replied, her enthusiasm igniting a collective energy. Jack could see hope in the faces around him, a realization that they were embarking on a journey, rather than merely a checklist of grievances. They agreed to meet weekly, each person sharing not just their past, but their aspirations forward, a philosophy rooted in understanding mistakes but concentrated on resilience. Jack proposed tangible goals, integrating the lessons learned into their lives moving forward. This was about evolving, not just surviving. "I want to create a space for Lily and Max that honors their heritage but doesn't chain them to it," Jack asserted, his voice filled with conviction. "They should know our family's history, both the good and the bad, but they must also see that we can redefine who we are." Over the next weeks, those meetings transformed into a sanctuary where truth thrived. Jack not only guided his family in facing their past, but also reframed their history into lessons of strength and perseverance, weaving in his children's hopes alongside the narrative. As the weeks turned into months, Jack experienced an undeniable transformation within. He felt empowered by vulnerability, becoming a beacon for his children, demonstrating that facing fears could lead to authentic strength. Those moments of candid discussion and reflection bridged the gap within his family, building unbreakable bonds forged by honesty. Through this growth, Jack found confidence in his identity, embracing his role as a father and a leader not just in crisis management but in legacy reparation. He had shifted from the man living in the shadows of his father's mistakes to a guiding light willing to uproot the flaws of their lineage and anchor a new identity for his children. The family's gathering on the balcony to celebrate their progress became a manifest of their shared journey. As they toasted to newfound perspectives, Jack caught a glimpse of Lily and Max laughing, their innocence intact, unmarred by the burdens of yesteryears. The realization settled warmly in his heart. He had achieved not just a reconciled family, but a legacy intertwined with hope and resilience. This journey of courage had led him home, redefining what it meant to be a family. Jack stood with solid confidence, recognized competence, and established a position as both a son willing to face his family history and a father creating a new future for his children. He had conquered the fears once shackling him, emerging victorious in his quest not only to heal his family but to instill the confidence in Lily and Max to carry that legacy into the world unburdened. Now, as he looked across the smiles of his family, he understood that the real journey was only beginning. And as the sun set behind Florence, illuminating the city in golden warmth, Jack felt a profound fulfillment. He had truly rewritten his family's narrative. If this story has inspired you, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and ensure you don't miss any exclusive emotional stories. Comment with your reactions and theories about the ending, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation. Don't wait even one more second.